they're actually overstaffed. I'm Ann Makovic with the minutes.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
It's a warm day for us today in the Bay Area with upper 60s in the forecast in our inland spots and low 60s along the coast. Now we have a light onshore breeze that gets a little bit stronger into the afternoon hours today. At max, we can see a wind gust up to around 20 miles per hour just near Bodega Bay. Lighter conditions near San Francisco all the way down in Half Moon Bay, especially as we head into the evening hours tonight. Now there's some big changes in the weather pattern for us. Yesterday we dealt with some rain, but today we're starting to dry up and we'll see that trend continue as high pressure moves in from offshore. That does a couple things for us. Not only does it dry us up, but it warms us up all throughout the state of California. The Climate Prediction Center is showing drier than normal conditions that will last into next week's forecast. So you take a look at the next 7 days, dry as can be, but beautiful too. I mean, we'll see sunny skies into the afternoon hours and daytime highs creeping into the 70s in our inland spots around the corner. The National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center also has shown that we're going to see warmer than normal conditions as we head into the next 6 to 10 days. So we timed that out starting off in our inland areas. We'll see upper 60s today with beautiful sunshine. So partly cloudy conditions as we creep closer to the weekend. But look at next week. We continue to see these 70s last into next week's forecast. So an extended period of time of dry conditions and beautiful warm weather to accompany it too. Now we make our way over into the Bay, closer to San Francisco, or across the Bay Bridge over into Oakland. We're still in the upper 60s for now. It takes a little bit longer to reach the 70s, actually until next week. So we get this midweek warm up next week with sunshine in the forecast and 70s as early as next Wednesday. But for the time being, it's still a great forecast to get out there and get some fresh air. We'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center. For now, back over to you.
Well, shrinking school budgets and fewer students leading to some painful decisions for Bay Area school districts and families. That includes in Santa Rosa, where the School Board of Trustees has just voted to close 3 elementary schools: Brook Hill, Albert Biela, and Steele Lane. The fate of several middle and high schools could be determined today. That includes Elsie Allen High School. Erica Contreras has a daughter that goes there, and she told us she's worried that if it shuts down, it's going to make it much more difficult for parents trying to get their kids to and from school.
It's one of our only high schools in Southwest Santa Rosa, so a lot of our kids are going to be impacted.
A crowd of parents and students arrived at City Hall last night to appeal to trustees in a marathon 6-hour meeting. Dulce Rodriguez, a junior at LC, told us that she was there to try to get answers directly from the district.
Well, I think it was their problem for misusing the money that was for our schools, and they haven't owned up to it yet. They haven't apologized or anything, and I just want them to take responsibility.
The district says deep cuts are needed to help balance its budget and that it's exploring all possible options to minimize the impact on students and families. Similar theme in Solano County. Vallejo school board leaders moving ahead with school closures and staff cuts. Mare Island Health and Fitness Academy is going to close, and Vallejo Charter School will take its place. Loma Vista Environmental Science Academy also closing. Just like in many Bay Area school systems, leaders blame a big budget shortfall. Other Bay Area districts blame budget deficits and declining enrollment for closures in their regions. That includes the Franklin, McKinley, and Alum Rock districts in San Jose, as well as San Francisco Unified and Oakland Unified. And this is a trend that we could see continuing. Take a look at this graph from the Public Policy Institute. Statewide enrollment could drop even further by 2023. So what is causing the decline? We heard from one of the fellows from the Institute.
Yeah, so there's really a couple things that have been going on. One is we had a decline during the pandemic, so parents held their kids out of school. We had more kids enrolling in private school or doing homeschool options. Some of that has subsided, but what's continued is a longer running demographic trend where we have people moving out of the state, we've had stalled population growth, and we also have lower birth rates. And so each kind of cohort of kids that's entering the K through 12 system year after year is smaller. And so with that, comes a smaller school footprint and perhaps eventually school closures as well.
He says even though the downsizing decisions are difficult, there is a silver lining. Money allocated from the state could go further for local districts with fewer kids. Turning now to Alameda County, where newly sworn-in District Attorney Ursula Jones-Dixon is spending her first week on the job. She tells us safety is one of her top priorities. Our Lauren Toms caught up with her as she was settling in to her new office.
Alameda County's new district attorney, Ursula Jones Dixon, barely had time to settle into her office, a space once held by Supreme Court Chief Justice Earl Warren, before being met with a court strike, halting proceedings and highlighting challenges ahead. But she says she didn't seek the job because it was easy, but because she knows the impact the office can have.
Oakland is really struggling. I feel like we're on an IV right now. No office is perfect, and no history of any office is perfect. But this office has an amazing history of people who've done great work.
Dixon, who has lived in Alameda County for more than 2 decades, understands the challenges ahead. She calls Oakland not only home, but a beautiful city on life support.
They don't have the police, and the budget is a mess, and we're waiting to see who our new mayor is, and I'm saying we because I live in the city. But the other piece of that is these agencies are still working hard. They've not slacked. They're still bringing cases in. It's up to us to take up the rest of that.
A career public servant, Dixon has worn many hats, from prosecutor in this very office to Superior Court judge, and now the county's top law enforcement official after being appointed to the post last month. But she isn't here for the title.
The people here are like, what should we call you? I'm like, Ursula. That's my name, Ursula. And so I don't care about the title. I just care about the work.
Latest statistics show an uphill battle for Dixon. According to city data, violent crime dropped across Alameda County, including in Oakland, where it saw a 19% decrease. But Dixon handles the next step, prosecutions. And according to the latest data from Oakland police, just 3% of violent crimes were solved in 2023. And that's where her work begins.
I feel like we cannot stop the crime from occurring, but we can be a deterrent, and we can make sure that people know that when something happens to them and it's brought to our office, something happens. There is a consequence for every action.
Her first major policy shift, speeding up the charging process, upending her predecessor Pamela Price's progressive policy.
If our job is to make sure we at most can protect our community by also making sure that young people who make dumb mistakes, everybody doesn't have to go to state prison for everything that they do. But you can't continue to do the same thing over and over again with the same result and not call that insanity.
Ultimately, she says the role of DA is about consequences, ensuring that when crime happens, justice follows.
Well, her first order of business, she issued a directive to prosecutors rescinding a handful of her predecessor's policies, including requiring special approval before adding enhancements to a case, such as a gun enhancement that adds time onto a sentence. Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area, 2 celebrated cafes in San Francisco's Union Square shut down with hardly any notice. Why the celebrity chef is abandoning the plaza.
Well, I would hope they would stay. I mean, if the relationship is workable still.
Plus, Democrats trying to get their message back on track after sweeping election losses. We sat down with one of President Trump's fiercest critics in Congress about the future of the party.
We need to tell a better story because people aren't buying the story that they associate with the Democratic Party.
And history being brought back to life. We'll introduce you to the storytellers who want to keep a painful part of the past vivid in our minds.
It's a beautiful, dry day for us today here in the Bay Area with mid-60s in the forecast all throughout the Bay from San Francisco over in Oakland. We'll see some partly cloudy conditions starting to fill the Bay as we head into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in those early morning hours. But the best part about this forecast, we're warming up. You see 70s just off in the distance for our friends along the Bay. You head over into our inland areas, 70s return into the forecast as early as Saturday into Sunday, and we hold on tight to that warm weather as we head into next week with more sunshine right around the corner.
What was touted as a potential boost for San Francisco's Union Square is now another vacancy. In 2023, Mayor London Breed's administration granted celebrity chef Tyler Florence hundreds of thousands of dollars to get two chronically vacant kiosks up and running. But as our Kara St. Cyr reports, Florence pulled the plug on those two cafes right before the NBA All-Star Weekend.
When the music stops and the crowd shrink, Tim Stiles and lead singer Irania Del Mora used to grab a snack at Miller & Lux Provisions in Union Square.
My favorite was the sour cream. Sour cream was just perfectly done. It was just good glaze, right, golden brown, croissant. It was just good.
But those days are over now. Celebrity chef and Food Network star Tyler Florence abruptly walked away from two cafes he had been running in city-owned kiosks in Union Square just before NBA All-Star Weekend.
Well, I would hope they would stay. I mean, if the relationship is workable still and they see profit.
The city temporarily filled the vacancy over the weekend with Bee Patisserie, a local bakery in Pacific Heights, but it's unclear who will take over the location permanently.
3, 2, 1.
In 2023, the cafes opened up to much fanfare, touted as a way to reinvigorate the struggling shopping district. The city granted Florence $440,000 to get the two cafes up and running on opposite sides of the plaza. One has been closed for renovation since March 2024. Both businesses were under a 3-year lease. A spokesperson for the City Recreation and Parks Department said in a statement, while they've made the decision to move on, we're grateful for their time here and optimistic about the future of cafe spaces. But they didn't specify why Florence stepped away. The chef also operates the Miller & Lux Steakhouse and Chase Center. But Dave Soref, a Bay Area resident, is still hopeful for the kiosk's future.
I'd like to see it be replaced with another cafe, preferably a local chain like Pete's or Phil's or something like that.
He's an artist, a pioneer.
Back at the plaza, Stiles thinks the setback is only temporary.
I've seen so many positive changes around here within the last 2 years that I think we're definitely on our way back.
He'll keep singing, no matter what.
Well, we reached out to Florence, but have not yet heard back. Last year, city supervisors voted to accept $2 million more in state grant money to renovate those kiosks. The city tells us that work will go on as planned to benefit future tenants. It's been almost a month since President Trump took office and brought Elon Musk along with him. Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has spent the last few weeks pressing ahead with the Trump administration's push to overhaul the government. That has led to massive cuts across the board, and more are coming. Federal workers from coast to coast held protests yesterday against Musk and his involvement with DOGE. Here in the Bay Area, people demonstrated outside of a Tesla dealership the corner of Van Ness and O'Farrell in San Francisco. Some people said they're worried about losing their jobs as cuts to the federal workforce continue. The Trump administration and DOGE have said that they're making the government more efficient by stopping what they described as wasteful spending, but many federal workers say that is not the case.
Trying to privatize the government, they're trying to stop Americans, everyday Americans, from getting the services they rely on, that me and my coworkers provide, just so that billionaires can profit more. Absolutely a crisis. It is completely dire, and we need to be getting into the streets. We need to be speaking out. We need to be pressuring Musk and his minions to stop this.
Roughly 80% of federal workers are based out of Washington, D.C. East Bay Congressman Eric Swalwell hosted a town hall meeting this week in Union City. He addressed a crowd of hundreds of people hoping to have their voices heard. Katie Nielsen also had some tough questions for him about how Democrats plan to get back on track.
It was a packed house at the Mark Green Sports Center filled with supporters for Congressman Eric Swalwell, who represents the southern portion of Alameda County.
I will work to protect you, and we will protect by working together each other. We can do that as a community.
Swalwell has been an outspoken critic specifically of the Trump administration both 4 years ago and now, rising to national prominence with repeated appearances on cable news networks and his involvement in the Trump impeachment hearings. And now he's vowing to bring the fight back to the Capitol.
Republicans won the White House. They now have control of Congress, and they have stacked the courts. You don't have a lot of levers of power to pull. So what do you reasonably hope that you can do or preserve?
My vote really does matter right now because the Republicans cannot lose a single vote right now. So if they can't keep it all together, and they never have been able to, Democrats have leverage.
Elections are all about values, and the American people have spoken very clearly that they are not buying what Democrats are selling. So what needs to change within the party to get people's trust back?
We need to tell a better story because people aren't buying the story that they associate with the Democratic Party. We need to be seen as fighting for those core values and not let, other issues that don't really affect us, they can't crowd out what really matters.
What mattered to the folks at the town hall were issues around immigration, protecting Social Security and Medicare. But the biggest topic of discussion, Elon Musk and Doge.
Why is he going to our computer system? And who are the minions that are with him?
Swalwell says unless Republicans stop making cuts to federal programs and departments, he will encourage all Democrats to force the government into a shutdown when the current spending bill expires on March 14.
So I would argue government is shutting down right now, that they are shutting it down intentionally, and that if they want our votes, we're pro helping people, keeping the government open.
And even then, he says he would only vote for extending the spending bill for 30 days at a time as a way to keep Trump and Musk in check.
Democrats still search for that answer. They still search for what to do.
David McEwen is a political science professor at Sonoma State University. He says threatening a government shutdown is the nuclear option, but Democrats don't have many other options because of their minority position in both houses.
In the first 6 months of this year, Democrats are going to be without some moves. It's really later in the year, into the August-September period to the end of September when the federal fiscal year ends, that Democrats want to exercise some leverage.
Until then, McEwen says Democrats need to work on reconnecting with voters.
Democrats are searching for a message. They're searching for a cohesive kind of standing place where they can push back about the administration, but at the same time present their own alternative view. They don't have those talking points yet, but Democrats lack that message and messenger, and they better find it pretty quickly.
Still ahead, shedding a light at a dark time in American history. We are taking a look at a new exhibit in the Bay Area, showcasing heartbreaking stories about what Japanese Americans suffered in internment camps during World War II.
I recognized him right away.
Their whole life had been blown up.
winds are relatively light pushing offshore, anywhere up to around 15-mile-per-hour wind gust in areas like Napa all the way over into Fairfield. That starts to change directions a little bit along our shoreline as we head into this afternoon, with wind gusts closer to San Francisco and Half Moon Bay, maxing at around 15 miles per hour before it dies down into this evening. Now, the big weather story for us has to do with that huge H you see on the map. It's high pressure and it's parked just offshore. It's this system that's going to create a drier and warmer weather pattern for us all throughout the Bay Area, but all throughout the state of California, really. We take a look at the next 6 to 10 days. What you see behind me is issued by the Climate Prediction Center, and it is showing drier than normal conditions for us here locally. So not a drop of rain in sight as we head into the next 7 days. But not only that, take a look at this. The Climate Prediction Center also puts out their temperature outlook, and we talked about this earlier. We'll see warmer temperatures as we head into this rest of this month and early next month for the beginning of March. Watch what happens as we head into the rest of this week, though. Upper 60s for now in our inland areas, quickly turn into low 70s. Still some partly cloudy skies from Friday until Sunday, but then we head into next work week and next school week, and that's when we continue to see this warm weather last with sunny skies day by day. So a great opportunity to get out there and get some fresh air with this next 7-day forecast. But we head over into the Bay, and it's pretty much the exact same trend. We hold off a little bit longer until we see 70s until mid next week in areas like Daly City, San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley. But for now, I mean, this isn't something to complain about either. Upper 60s for the time being heading into this weekend. Partly cloudy skies for Saturday and Sunday with sunshine right around the corner.
This week marks 83 years since President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed an executive order forcing more than 120,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps during World War II. Now there is a photo exhibit in Emeryville looking to retell the story of what they went through in 1942. Orion Yamamoto caught up with a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer and a woman from Albany who was born in one of those camps, who both want to make sure that no one else has to experience the same indignity.
I was shocked and saddened.
Satsuki Ina remembers the day when she discovered an historic photo of her father from 1942.
And even though the image of my dad is a little blurred, I recognized him right away.
The photo shows her father inside a jail at the Tule Lake internment camp, where nearly 19,000 of the 120,000 Japanese Americans taken from their homes were imprisoned during World War II.
I didn't know he was ever in the jail.
A jail she had a chance to visit. The side-by-side photos showing her standing and thinking inside her father's actual cell.
Just took some time to reflect on what it must have been like for him to be separated from his family, not knowing how long he's going to be gone or where he was going to be sent to.
The image of Satsuki, taken by Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer Paul Kitagaki Jr., whose project and research began after he discovered a photo of his own family taken in Oakland before they were about to board a bus and sent to the internment camp in Topaz, Utah.
My grandparents, my aunt, and my dad, he's 14. I just couldn't believe they were in this. I mean, I looked at my dad, he's wearing these jeans with these rolled up cuffs on his jeans. He's just sitting there really looking like, what the heck is going on?
Paul recreating the moment with a stoic photo of his father and aunt outside of the Oakland building where the original photo was taken.
Just standing in that same spot and just thinking back in 1942, their whole life had been blown up.
The full exhibit, called Gambate, has traveled the country since 2012, featuring more than 61 pairs of photos that he has curated since 2005.
This was a tough one. I mean,
one of the most iconic pairing of photos, an historic picture of these 3 young Boy Scouts saluting the flag at the Heart Mountain internment camp in Wyoming.
I like the symbolism of them. They're Boy Scouts. They're saluting the flag every morning and lowering the flag, showing respect to the United States of America. And here they are locked behind barbed wire. It's just such a shameful part of American history.
It is a part of history Satsuki Ina has written about in a book documenting her family's journey, and now travels the country speaking about the links of the Japanese-American experience to what is happening today with other immigrant groups.
It's the same rationale that's being used today to do mass roundup and detention of asylum seekers and other immigrants.
Her goal, to keep telling her story that all began 83 years ago with the signing of an executive order, now with the hopes that history does not repeat itself.
Well, the Gambate exhibit at the JSI in Emeryville is going to be on display through May. Attendants will have a chance to meet the photographer on March 1st. Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, mass layoffs of federal employees could have a big impact on wine country. Valuable research being left to rot on the vine.
It makes absolutely no sense. They cut 2 jobs.
Plus, a father and son using an interesting approach to tackle something we'll all have to deal with one day: what to do with your body after you die.
This is flame cremation here. This is water cremation here. So it's like the yin and yang.
A new way of using water for cremation and the conversation that sparked it all. And this is The Minute. San Francisco's Presidio Trust targeted by the Trump administration. An executive order aims to eliminate non-statutory functions at the federal agency that manages Presidio Park. The Presidio Trust sent us a statement asserting its compliance with federal law and saying that for now they will continue operations as usual. Republican Senator Mitch McConnell announced today he's not going to seek re-election next year. The Kentucky senator is the longest-serving Senate party leader in U.S. history. In recent days, he's been a no vote to some of President Trump's cabinet picks and confirmation hearings. And Vallejo school board leaders have voted to close 2 schools and cut staff. Mare Island Health and Fitness Academy will shut down, and Vallejo Charter School will move to that campus. Loma Vista Environmental Academy also closing those closures because of a budget shortfall. I'm Ann Makovic with The Minutes.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
It's a warm day for us today in the Bay Area with upper 60s in the forecast in our inland spots and low 60s along the coast. Now we have a light onshore breeze that gets a little bit stronger into the afternoon hours today. At max, we can see a wind gust up to around 20 miles per hour just near Bodega Bay. Lighter conditions near San Francisco all the way down in Half Moon Bay, especially as we head into the evening hours tonight. Now there's some big changes in the weather pattern for us. Yesterday we dealt with some rain, but today we're starting to dry up and we'll see that trend continue as high pressure moves in from offshore. That does a couple things for us. Not only does it dry us up, but it warms us up all throughout the state of California. The Climate Prediction Center is showing drier than normal conditions that will last into next week's forecast. So you take a look at the next 7 days, dry as can be, but beautiful too. I mean, we'll see sunny skies into the afternoon hours and daytime highs creeping into the 70s in our inland spots around the corner. The National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center also has shown that we're going to see warmer than normal conditions as we head into the next 6 to 10 days. So we timed that out starting off in our inland areas. We'll see upper 60s today with beautiful sunshine. So partly cloudy conditions as we creep closer to the weekend. But look at next week. We continue to see these 70s last into next week's forecast. So an extended period of time of dry conditions and beautiful warm weather to accompany it too. Now we make our way over into the Bay, closer to San Francisco, or across the Bay Bridge over into Oakland. We're still in the upper 60s for now. It takes a little bit longer to reach the 70s, actually until next week. So we get this midweek warm up next week with sunshine in the forecast and 70s as early as next Wednesday. But for the time being, it's still a great forecast to get out there and get some fresh air. We'll keep you updated on that here in the Weather Center. For now, back over to you.
Following a slew of federal cuts and consolidations by the Trump administration, North Bay wineries say federal layoffs could impact them as well. John Ramos has more on the valuable research that could go up in smoke.
In 2020, the air here in St. Helena was foul with the smell of wildfire smoke, and winemakers were wondering how it would affect their wines and whether there was anything they could do about it. The area took huge financial losses, and scientists began looking into the question, but now that research has come to a stop. The 2017 wine country fires that devastated Napa and Sonoma communities were just the beginning. Every year thereafter seemed to bring another huge wildfire somewhere in the state, sending smoke into the air for the wine grapes to soak up.
2020 is the year that took us down. You know, we lost millions of dollars just personally here at Visa Tui Winery. As the industry goes, we figure it's about a $3.7 billion hit to our industry.
Tom Davies, president of Visa Tui, said they weren't even sure how much the smoke would get into the finished product. They tried correcting it, but they weren't taking any chances of ruining their reputation in the industry.
We dumped millions of dollars of wine.
So the winemakers went to their congressman, Mike Thompson.
We need research on this. You need to help us. So, he won and he secured funds for us. We asked him to do this. And now, with a stroke of a pen, it gets taken away.
That's because the Trump administration, supposedly looking for fraud and waste, terminated the two scientists at UC Davis hired to research the cause and effects of smoke exposure on the multi-billion-dollar wine industry. Dr. Aaron Rombaugh was one of them.
That's how I started working with USDA, because stakeholders went to Congress and asked for research to be done. And we were gaining momentum. So how I'm feeling is that this is impacting stakeholders greatly. They went and they asked the federal government for assistance in an issue that they were seeing dramatically impacting their crops. And 2.5 years later, my position was removed.
And after earning distinction for her research, the form letter she got terminating her delivered one parting shot.
It did say at the bottom that based on my demonstrated performance, my position in the agency was no longer of public interest.
Erin says she will soon be looking for a new job, probably at a university or in private industry. She says she will not be considering working for the government anytime soon.
It makes absolutely no sense. They cut 2 jobs and we lost $3.7 billion worth of wine and inventory and property due to a wildfire. Wouldn't you want to have those 2 people researching this?
Those who have an interest in climate change know that wildfire and its impacts aren't going away and will continue to threaten the wine industry. For those who aren't interested, it really doesn't matter.
Well, the scientist says it appears that everybody who was terminated was still in their probationary period. She had worked for 2.5 years, but the probationary period at the USDA is 3 years. The Trump administration's cuts to the federal workforce also impacting national parks. And now there's a fear that a lack of staff could lead to overcrowding at Yosemite, California's most popular national park. With the limited staff, Yosemite became littered with unruly visitors, trash piling up, and parking problems during COVID. And now some people are afraid history is doomed to repeat itself as the park attempts to overcome federal cutbacks to staffing.
They already had to put pause on campground reservations because A, they don't have the people to take them, and B, they don't know if they're going to have the staff to run the campgrounds.
So the impact to visitors has yet to be seen. Around 325 million people visit national park sites each year, while some 159 million use national forests annually. Death is a subject that most of us do not like to talk about, but when it happens, there's usually two options: burial or cremation. Well, now one Bay Area funeral director says he has a revolutionary process that's already picking up locally. Kevin Coe shows us the process behind aquamation, also known as water cremation.
Lazaro is 22, and he's been working at his father's funeral home the past 5 years.
That's the blower kicking in that will blow the flames onto the person that actually allows for the cremation.
But in the course of doing the job, he faced a harsh reality.
It's something that you have a hard time imagining, your loved one going through.
Francisco Rivero is the founder of Pacific Interment and Lazaro's dad.
When he brought up the idea, well, if you're going to be cremated, I'm going to be the one doing it, and I don't want to do it, right? So we had a little, not a conflict, but just a discussion over this whole thing. And within a year of that conversation, he was reading about this new process.
That process is aquamation, also commonly called aquamation, alkaline hydrolysis, or water cremation.
This is flame cremation here. This is water cremation here. So it's like the yin and yang.
This aquamation machine is only the second one licensed by California, one of 28 states where this process is legal.
And this is where the hot water comes in.
It requires just 2 ingredients.
It's hot water mixed with potassium hydroxide flakes, which are these right here.
A body is loaded into the machine.
And then that's how you keep it locked up, because there's an enormous amount of pressure in the machine during the process.
After 3 to 4 hours, with 200 gallons of water basically dissolving the remains, the process is done. All that's left are a few bone fragments that are turned into a fine powder.
I never envisioned that there would be something that would supplant or could supplant cremation and burial. And this does. This is the perfect in-between.
Lazaro and Francisco believe aquamation is the future, filling a need inspired by their family's personal decision.
Well, Francisco also says that aquamation is more environmentally friendly than cremation or burial. It uses up to 90% less energy and emits far less carbon dioxide. As for where all that water goes, straight into the sewer. Coming up next, we're going to meet a local civil rights icon who marched with MLK. He says he has no plans to give up the fight for equality anytime soon.
For the good of all. This will be a better world.
It's a beautiful, dry day for us today here in the Bay Area with mid-60s in the forecast all throughout the Bay from San Francisco over in Oakland. We'll see some partly cloudy conditions starting to fill the Bay as we head into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in those early morning hours. But the best part about this forecast, we're warming up. You see 70s just off in the distance for our friends along the Bay. You head over into our inland areas, 70s return into the forecast as early as Saturday into Sunday, and we hold on tight to that warm weather as we head into next week with more sunshine right around the corner.
It is Black History Month, and we are celebrating the achievements, contributions, and legacy of the Bay Area's Black community. Today, we're telling the story of Reverend Amos Brown. As Veronica Macias shows us, he fought for equality next to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and has no plans on stopping anytime soon.
For Reverend Amos Brown, his civil activism has gone beyond the pulpit. His name, Amos, in Hebrew, means to carry the burden, and he has been answering the call to end racial injustice since an early age. In 1962, while still a student at Morehouse, he took part in a peaceful kneel-in protest because Black worshipers were being turned away from God's house in the South.
I broke down segregation at White First Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Now that's the largest white Southern Baptist church in the Southeast region. And remember, the Southern Baptist Convention was founded in 1845 over the issue of slavery. And even when the Supreme Court decision was rendered outlawing segregation in public education, who fought it for 10 to 15 years? Southern Baptists.
Reverend Brown has served as the pastor of San Francisco's oldest African-American church since 1976. As the president of the NAACP in San Francisco and a former city supervisor, he's become an icon for social justice.
I led the first school boycott in 1978 because of disparities in the treatment of Black administrators when it came to employment, job opportunities. And from that boycott that was 85% effective, I also made the appeal that we would not just be concerned about the job security, but we should be also concerned about the children. And we established the Freedom School.
The Freedom School program during the summer months at Third Baptist Church works to fight illiteracy with underserved children. As his prominent mentor, Dr. Martin Luther King, and others taught him, Reverend Brown says it's not about only getting mad, but about getting smart by building healthy communities, ridding them of violence and underachievement.
Till this day, 50 or 60 years later, Amos is still doing it. Amos, for me, is a reflection of what Martin Luther King Jr. really wanted. He has achieved it.
The church on McAllister is like a home. When Reverend Brown isn't with the congregation, you'll likely find him in his office, where the walls tell a story of his civil rights activism, showing pivotal moments in time, like his arrest in 1961 for a lunch counter sit-in along with Dr. King.
This is John Lewis up here. There's still a nation that does not live out equality of opportunity for all people.
Despite the advancements for the African American community, the current dissolvement of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs worries him, not only for Black Americans, but for all races.
To see people of different races, different countries, coming together, learning from each other, working together for the good of all. This would be a better world.
Reverend Brown arrived to San Francisco as a young man after having organized the Youth Council of the NAACP. And as he approaches his 84th birthday, he has made no plans to retire, especially not when America is going through historical changes.
Well, join us tonight as we honor the contributions and rich legacy of the Black community right here in the Bay Area. That special is going to air at 7:30 p.m. and you can watch our hour-long version on Saturday at 7 p.m. Coming up, we're going to meet a Bay Area woman providing a helping hand for our country's newest citizens. She has given them a better shot at achieving their American dream.
You're not just volunteering, you're part of this person's life and future and their children's future.
Off with today alone, winds are relatively light pushing offshore, anywhere up to around 15-mile-per-hour wind gust in areas like Napa all the way over into Fairfield. That starts to change directions a little bit along our shoreline as we head into this afternoon, with wind gusts closer to San Francisco and Half Moon Bay, maxing at around 15 miles per hour before it dies down into this evening. Now, the big weather story for us has to do with that huge H you see on the map. It's high pressure and it's parked just offshore. It's the system that's going to create a drier and warmer weather pattern for us all throughout the Bay Area, but all throughout the state of California, really. We take a look at the next 6 to 10 days. What you see behind me is issued by the Climate Prediction Center, and it is showing drier than normal conditions for us here locally. So not a drop of rain in sight as we head into the next 7 days. But not only that, take a look at this. The Climate Prediction Center also puts out their temperature outlook, and we talked about this earlier. We'll see warmer temperatures as we head into this rest of this month and early next month for the beginning of March. Watch what happens as we head into the rest of this week, though. Upper 60s for now in our inland areas, quickly turn into low 70s. Still some partly cloudy skies from Friday until Sunday, but then we head into next work week and next school week, and that's when we continue to see this warm weather last with sunny skies day by day. So a great opportunity to get out there and get some fresh air with this next 7-day forecast. But we head over into the Bay, and it's pretty much the exact same trend. We hold off a little bit longer until we see 70s until mid next week in areas like Daly City, San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley. But for now, I mean, this isn't something to complain about either. Upper 60s for the time being heading into this weekend. Partly cloudy skies for Saturday and Sunday with sunshine right around the corner.
Well, the U.S. welcomed more than 2.5 million new citizens over the last 3 years. It's according to federal data. The application process can be time-consuming, though, and complicated. Today, we want to highlight a longtime volunteer who helps people who are new to the Napa Valley. Our Sharon Chin introduces us to this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award winner.
Okay. Betty LaBastida guides newcomers on their path to the American dream.
You are part of a bigger thing. You're not just volunteering. You're part of this person's life and future and their children's future. Jalisco.
Betty volunteers at free bi-monthly workshops helping dozens of people fill out their applications for U.S. citizenship. The program, organized by Napa Valley Together, a collaborative that serves the area's immigrant families. Betty is passionate about her work. Though she was born a U.S. citizen, her parents and sisters came from Mexico.
Once they immigrated, my father became a U.S. citizen as soon as he was able. And he knew English and was able to have no problems with it.
But the process was tough for her mother.
She was kind of intimidated by it. It's not easy. It's not easy to learn English. It's not easy to learn all the civics questions. She became our project.
And in the end, her mother became a U.S. citizen along with Betty's sisters. That experience inspired Betty to volunteer.
So for me, it's like a way of giving back.
For the legal permanent residents who come for help, the forms alone can be daunting, requiring details about family history, travel, employment, and more. Betty also helps folks study for their interview and civics questions in English and urges them not to give up.
A lot of times when applicants will say, oh, I'll never know this, I can't do this, I can't do that, I always tell them my mom's story.
In fact, organizers with the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area say Betty is its longest-serving volunteer who's helped at the citizenship application workshop since they began 13 years ago. North Bay Regional Directing Attorney Madeline Hernandez.
She is extremely invested in the clients, wants to make sure that they feel comfortable.
His father is a citizen, but he...
And volunteers learn a lot from Betty.
They see her empathy and just the way she relates to other clients, and I think it's a really good model for our other volunteers.
For Betty, it's the latest chapter of her life of service. As a family nurse practitioner for the U.S. Department of State, she'd completed missions across the globe. Now retired, she also volunteers leading Napa River Earth Day cleanups and collecting food for the food bank.
When people are successful or appreciative of what you're doing, you want to give more. And I think that's part of why I volunteer. Thank you. Thanks, Maddie.
So for her volunteer work that includes assisting newcomers in the path to U.S. citizenship, this week's CBS News Bay Area Icon Award goes to Betty LaBastida.
Now, the free citizenship legal services workshops are very successful. They've helped with more than 3,000 applicants over 13 years, and well over 90% have become U.S. citizens. You can nominate a community hero for a CBS News Bay Area Icon Award at our website, kpix.com/icon. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with your first alert forecast and another look at your top stories.